Imagine you're 23 years old, you've just done something no one in the world has managed to do before, cracked a problem that's haunted medicine for decades. You've given suffering people something they never had, relief, maybe even hope. Now imagine you die before you can publish your work, and someone else takes the credit. That's not a hypothetical, that's the life of Alice Ball. Alice Augusta Ball was born in Seattle in 1892 into a family that took education seriously. Her grandfather was one of the first black photographers in the American West, a man who understood that documentation can be powerful and that images preserve what time tries to erase. The irony of that detail will haunt you by the end of this video. Alice was exceptional from the start. She excelled in science and chemistry, eventually earning not one but 2 bachelor's degrees, one in pharmacy and one in pharmaceutical chemistry from the University of Washington. Then she went further. At the University of Hawaii, she completed a master's degree in chemistry at just 23 years old. Not just a master's degree, the master's degree. She was the first woman and the first Black American to graduate with an advanced degree from the University of Hawaii. And her thesis? It was groundbreaking enough to attract the attention of one of the most pressing medical problems of the early 20th century. To understand what Alice did, we need to understand what leprosy, Hansen's disease, was in 1915. It meant exile. Hawaii had Kalaupapa, a leprosy settlement on the Molokai Peninsula, carved off from the rest of the island by sheer cliffs. People who tested positive were forcibly removed from their families, sometimes in the middle of the night, and taken there. No appeals, no return. Leprosy itself attacks the nerves and skin. It disfigures, it isolates. And in 1915, there was no reliable treatment. Physicians had been experimenting for years with oil extracted from the Chaulmoogra tree, a plant used in traditional medicine across South and Southeast Asia, but it didn't work the way they needed it to. The problem ended up being delivery. Chaulmoogra oil is thick, viscous, and pretty unpleasant. You couldn't drink it without vomiting. You couldn't inject it because it wouldn't mix with water. It would just sit in tissue and cause abscesses. Applied topically, it barely penetrated the skin. For all the promise locked inside the plant, medical practitioners couldn't get it out. That's where Alice Ball came in. Alice's master thesis had impressed Harry T. Holman, a physician at a Honolulu hospital treating leprosy patients. He brought her a problem: make Chaulmoogra oil injectable, make it work. What Alice understood, and what others had fumbled around with solving, was the chemistry of fatty acids. Chaulmoogra oil contains unique fatty acids with a cyclopentenyl ring structure, which is part of what makes them so thick and resistant to mixing with water. Alice's solution was to chemically modify those fatty acids, specifically to create their ethyl ester forms. By reacting the fatty acids with ethyl alcohol, she produced compounds that were water-soluble, injectable, and stable. Oil could now be delivered directly into the bloodstream. She tested it, it worked. For the first time, leprosy patients were experiencing real improvement. Some were declared fit enough to leave Kalaupapa. Holman's patients were getting better. The Ball method, as it would come to be called, eventually, was a genuine medical breakthrough. Alice Ball was 23 years old. In December of 1916, Alice got sick. The exact cause is uncertain, though some accounts suggest an accident involving chlorine gas during a lab demonstration. She returned to Seattle for treatment. She died in December 1916. She was 24 years old. She'd not yet published her findings. And this is where the story turns dark. Arthur L. Dean, the president of the University of Hawaii and a chemist, continued her research after her death. In 1920, he published a paper on the Chaulmoogra oil extraction method. He named it, with no reference to Alice Ball, the Dean method. He had taken her work, unpublished, undefended, belonging to a young black woman who is no longer alive to object, and then he put his name on it. For years, it held. The Dean method was used to treat thousands of leprosy patients through the 1930s and 40s until sulfone drugs finally replaced it, and Alice Ball's name remained simply gone. To his credit, Harry Holman did not stay silent. In 1922, he published an article explicitly crediting Alice Ball with the development of the injectable Chaulmoogra oil. He named her. He explained her process. He pushed back, but it wasn't enough. Holman was a physician, not a prominent academic. Dean was the university president. The institutional weight came down on one side, and Alice Ball remained obscure for decades. The treatment she developed continued saving lives in Hawaii, across the United States, in clinics treating patients in India and Africa, and no one attached to that treatment knew the name of the woman who had made it possible. It took most of the 20th century for the record to start being corrected. In 1977, a researcher named Catherine Takara began investigating Ball's life. Progress was slow, but by the late 1990s, the story had gained enough momentum that the University of Hawaii felt pressure to act. In 2000, the university finally awarded Alice Ball a posthumous Medal of Distinction. A plaque was installed near a Chaulmoogra tree on the Manoa campus. The Hawaii State Legislature passed a resolution declaring February 29th, a leap day, Alice Ball Day, a choice that carries its own quiet irony, a day that only exists every 4 years for a woman history tried hard not to remember. Her image now appears in the Smithsonian. Her name is now in textbooks, at least some of them. Here's the question that lingers after a story like this. Alice Ball's erasure was not an accident. It required specific conditions. Her early death, her lack of publication, Dean's decision to claim the work as his own, and, beneath all of it, a world structured in ways that made her easily silenced and easily forgotten. A young black woman in 1916 did not have institutional power. Her work was brilliant, but her name had no armor around it. And she's not a unique case. The history of science is crowded with people, disproportionately women, disproportionately people of color, whose contributions were absorbed, misattributed, or simply never credited. Rosalind Franklin's X-ray crystallography, Chien-Shiung Wu's beta decay experiment, Henrietta Lacks' cells. The pattern is not a series of isolated mistakes. It is a structure, which makes the act of remembering Alice Ball something more than a historical correction. It's a statement about who we decide to remember, who we let be forgotten, and what it costs us, scientifically and morally, when brilliant people disappear into other people's footnotes. Alice Ball developed the first effective injectable treatment for leprosy. She did it in her early 20s with rigor and creativity at a time when the scientific establishment had every structural reason to overlook her. Her work gave thousands of people relief from exile and suffering. She deserves to be remembered by name, not as a footnote to Dean, not as a footnote to Holman, as Alice Ball, chemist, pioneer, and one of the most remarkable scientists of the 20th century, whether the 20th century knew it or not.